I'm Glen Macnow, along with my pal Joe Sixpack. We have a special guest today. Really looking forward to being joined by Mike Sielski, Philadelphia Inquirer sports columnist. Mike's got a lot of good, strong opinions on many things, including beer. So we will be looking forward to talking to Mike about beer as well. And our topic du jour is fruit beers. Well, we've got strong opinions on that. I've got strong opinions on that. Joe Sixpack also has strong opinions on that. We always like to start with our beer swap. Joe Sixpack, let me know when you're up. I see me. I don't see you.
I'm up, Glenn. I hope
there you are.
You get me there? Good, good. We're good to go.
Now I got you, buddy. Okay. So let's start with our beer swap, and we're doing fruit beers today. You go first.
All right, so it is fruit beer today, and I wanted to get something new out there. We're getting a little bit of feedback here. I'm going to turn my sound. We're good? Okay.
Okay.
I wanted to do something new out there, and this just showed up on the scene from Iron Hill. It's called Pogchamp. It's named after the fruit that goes into, which is passion fruit, orange, and guava. It's a sour kettled beer, which are somewhat a little bit controversial because, they're sort of like shortcut fruit beers that are out there where they add the lactic acid to the beer to make it sour and then put a lot of fruit in there, or fruit flavorings, which we're going to talk a little bit about. But pouring it into my official What's Brewing.
I got the same one today. There you go.
So actually, this is the appropriate glass because it is a really nice clear beer. It's sort of Pilsner looking, very, very, I don't know if you can see this, but there's quite a bit of bubbling action going on.
Yeah, nice.
So let me give it a taste here. Wow, there's a lot of fruit in there. It's almost like a juice, except there's just a tiny bit of sourness or tartness in there, almost like the amount of like a sort of semi-tart lemonade is how I would describe it. But as I said, I get the orange, and I guess it's passion fruit. I don't know. What is a passion fruit anyway?
Passion fruit is a tropical fruit. It grows on a tree, falls on the ground. So it's actually good. They used to make lifesavers out of it.
Okay. So I got this at the curbside pickup at the Iron Hill in Chestnut Hill. Pretty easy service up there. I wanted to give them a shout out because they are also, if you happen to stop by there, make sure you bring one of those half-gallon growlers with you because they're doing what they call $5 chucks. They're $5 and they'll fill up a half-gallon of beer for you.
Wow. Good deal.
Just a limited number of varieties. I got a Dunkel that was outstanding last night. I highly recommend that as a great deal.
All right, well, I've got my fruit beer today is Island in the Sun. I got this at the Town Tap in Havertown, Conshohocken Brewing Company's double IPA with pineapple in it. Let me open it up. It's got Mosaic, Simcoe, and Bravo hops and lots of pineapple. Very, very tropical and fruity.
It looks like orange juice.
As you can see, it does, but it's delicious. Just released yesterday, as a matter of fact, for the season. It's been a very popular beer for us over the last couple of years.
I guess that's sort of a summer beer.
Yeah, it is. Well, we didn't think it was going to be 38 degrees tonight with the possibility of snow. This is a great, I would say 60 degrees and up, it's perfect. And hopefully we're getting to 60 degrees and up. Also brought a couple others to show you while we're on the topic of fruit beers. This is the Silo Series Pomegranate Grapefruit IPA by Winding Path. We had some of their stuff on the show last week, if you recall. This one I have not tried yet, and I got to tell you, I'm a little nervous about it. Moss Mill, who's been a good friend of the show, this is their Light Saber Lager with lime. My problem with anything with lime, I start thinking it's the Margarita. I assume that Moss Mill does a better job than that.
Well, I got to tell you, I had it, and it did not impress me that much. It was okay. I guess if you were in the mood for some sort of like one of those Mexican kind of lagers, it would go for you. There was a nice lager flavor to it, but it didn't knock me over too much.
All right, this is Workhorse Margarita Key Lime Gauche.
Gauche, I got to tell you, that stuff is good.
Is it really?
Puts you to mind of of a margarita. I had one on Cinco de Mayo, and it was quite good.
I'm generally not a lime guy, but we'll see. And this is again, it's a Conchi Brewing Company, Blood Money with blood oranges. Again, a very popular beer that we make there that people seem to like. Let me just tell you what a couple other people are drinking right now. I always like when people contact us. Kathleen Montoni Bonini is having a blackberry sour tonight. Interesting. I shouldn't say what brand she is having there, so I'm not really sure. Bill Heyergeist is having a Trogs Mad Elf. Still good for him.
Cherries in it.
Pardon me?
That has cherries in it.
It has cherries in it, indeed. Right. Steve Crispy is having a pineapple and he's saying pineapple and IPA work well together. Indeed, they do. Susan Siach is having a Franz Connor Weiss beer. That's a
great beer. It doesn't need any fruit at all. And don't stick a lemon in it either. It's too good.
And Mike Vrieswick, the greatest player in the history of Temple University, as you know, is having a Skadoosh by The Alchemist. Always good when you get The Alchemist stuff. So let's talk a little bit about fruit beers. And I will be honest with you and tell you, back when, they first started coming onto the market, you tell me what, 10, 15 years ago?
Oh, no, it's longer than that. It goes back into the beginning of into the 1990s, really, is when they started showing up in the American craft beer scene. But Glenn, way before that. All
right, well, you start at the beginning, and then I'll tell you my history.
Yeah, I mean, fruit has fermentable sugars in it. So man has been figuring out ways to ferment it for as long as we've been drinking. And so those fruit beers have been around, or some variety of a fruit beer has been around since the very beginning. I know that, from in my own history, it goes back to the Belgian style fruit beers that were out. They were always making some interesting beers. They were way ahead of what we were making back in like the 1970s and 80s. Used to see a lot of peach and cherry beers coming from Belgium. But in the U.S., if you think about the craft brewing beginning in around the 1980s, around 1990 or so is when you started to see some of these fruit beers show up. And the one that I always remember the flavor I always remember is raspberry. That was like the big first fruit flavored beer that you would see out there.
Okay, when they first started, I remember not liking them. And I don't know if I didn't like them because my tastes were more limited than they are now, which indeed is true. I mean, when I started drinking beer, I was just lager, pilsner, basic, 4.8 stuff. And now I enjoy stuff much more interesting. But I generally felt back then that the fruit was trying to cover up for mediocre taste, that it was not good beer that they tried to hide with fruit flavoring. Whether that was true or not, it clearly is not true now.
Well, I think it was true back then, and I sort of think it may not be completely true today, but I think instead today the fruit is added because it's appealing to a certain sector of beer drinkers who want sort of an interesting, fruity, and often sweet flavored beer. So you're often seeing a lot of sweetness in it. I picked one out of off my shelves today. This is Smoothie Dreams from Captain Lawrence. This is typical. This is one of those milkshake IPAs, a lot of lactose sugar. It's very sweet. And then they added, in this case, black raspberry and pomegranate. So it's an interesting beer. It's not my style of beer, but you're seeing a lot of this type of fruit beer out there now.
All right. Now, one of the things that I like to think when I drink this is I am getting real fruit, good vitamin C, the real stuff. You're here to tell me that what they tell me are those natural flavors are not necessarily raspberries, strawberries, blueberries. What's the deal?
True that. Originally, I think most of the fruit-flavored beers you saw had either real fruit or fruit juice in them, but more and more you're seeing what they're calling natural flavors. This is a big thing in brewing these days, where you can just buy little vials of various fruit, or rather various flavors, anything, from raspberry or vanilla or anything, and you can just add it to the beer and add that thing. They say they're natural flavorings, but that only means that it comes from, or there's some plant or animal material in there that it comes from, but they tweaked it. Chemically, they may have changed some of the, to change and amplify some of the flavors. And frankly, let me just tell you how far this goes.
Yeah, I know where you're going here. Go ahead.
So vanilla flavor and often raspberry flavor the so-called natural flavor is from the anal glands of a beaver.
All right. So my biggest question on that is, who found that out? Who is it that came up with the idea of, hey, you know what? Let's taste this beaver's anus to see what it tastes like. Whoa, vanilla.
I would say a dedicated beer drinker.
I don't know. Let me tell you what some of our viewers are drinking right now. Sarah Chaga Crispin. Well, this is nice. Philly Vice by Conchak and Brewing Company. She also says Hell or High Watermelon from 21st Amendment. We've got a few people who really like that one.
Yeah, it is a good beer.
She also likes Pink by Yards and The Bog by Cape May Brewing. Sarah, put down the glass. Jim Reynolds, who's a frequent friend of the show. Founders Blushing Monk. Triple Belgians are my favorite style, and Founders hit a grand slam with the raspberries in this.
Yes, that's a really, really nice beer. One of my favorite fruit beers out there. It's outstanding.
Rick Tobias says Cape May's The Bog is more of a shandy, but it's really nice, tart, easy drinking beer for the hot days of summer when outside. Lots of cranberry, slight bitterness, some lemon to clean the palate. Yeah, let me give you two more. Chet Chesko says, I'm a fan of 3. Eagle Brewery Banana Bread Beer, and I want to get back to that in a second. Ship Bottom Brewery Blueberry Bikini Bottom Wheat Ale, and Muddy Brewing's Blueberry Blonde. And Jarrett Remster, 21st Amendment Hell or High Watermelon. Oh, is the worst fruit beer, the worst fruit beer, and potentially the worst beer I've ever had, which is a shame because I generally like their beers. Okay.
Oh, I could find plenty of worse beers than that. And I actually do like that beer. It's a nice sort of refreshing beer. If you don't like watermelon, you're not going to like that beer at all. But there are some nasty fruit beers out there.
Okay. Which leads me to my next question, in which I come to you as the authority, Joe Sixpack. Are there any fruits in your mind don't work in beer?
I can't think of, maybe one or two that I've had were decent, but mostly banana. It does not really work that well, which is weird because some cultures, I think, drink beer that's based on banana, but that beer, banana flavored beer, often tastes like something you might want to have for breakfast, or maybe not want to have for breakfast.
Well, it's a little sweet. It's funny because several people mentioned banana bread beer is something they really like. I got a lot of positive response on that one.
I've had it. It's very sweet, and that's why I think a lot of people like it, but it just doesn't rock my boat.
All right, give me a couple other big-time failures that you haven't liked.
The two that I can think of off the top of my head that are really bad, one is goes way back, is Pete's Wicked Winter Brew. This was a raspberry flavored beer. Pete's Wicked, one of the great breweries.
Yeah, sure.
Breweries in American microbrewing history. But they made a winter brew that was cough syrup. It was like sort of thing you have. It might have actually been a coronavirus flu cure, if I'm not mistaken. It was nasty. Still on the market. And I know we had some viewers, they actually mentioned this when you put this out on Facebook, is Sam Adams Cherry Wheat. That beer gets mocked really severely by craft beer fans, and I think appropriately so. It's not a good beer in my opinion.
By the way, speaking of banana beer, Bob Benash says, love me some Wells banana bread beer. That's one that came up a little bit.
That's the one you see the most, yeah.
Yeah. George Cesarini says, who gets that close to a beaver anus? Well, yeah, I'm with him on that one. That was a showstopper when you brought that up. I did not know that. So the vanilla I get, like the McCormick's vanilla extract that I get, right, that my wife makes a thing with, I don't have to worry about that.
There's probably real vanilla beans in there. This is just an artificial flavoring that's out there. God knows when it shows up or where it shows up, but that will put you off vanilla beers, I think.
Yeah, you hurt me with that one. Okay, so let's stay on fruit beers. What kind of beer works best as a base for fruit beers? Because we've covered it with a lot. What do you think's the best?
Well, I think these days IPAs work really well with fruit because there's so many really nice hop varieties that have sort of fruit character to them. Whether it's pineapple or often grapefruit, which comes from those great Cascade hops. Famously, the Ballast Point Sculpin, the grapefruit, is just huge in that. And I sort of think that beer is responsible for kicking off the whole. I mean, they were out there, but they really made the whole popularity of fruit IPAs huge.
Well, you anticipated my next question or my next answer, because my next thing was your favorite fruit beer, and I'm going with that Sculpin. That grapefruit Sculpin to me is just terrific. It's a home run. I like a lot of fruit beers, more than I ever thought, but that's my favorite. What's your favorite?
It's very drinkable. I enjoy it quite a bit. I have two really favorite beers, longtime favorites. One is local Weyerbacher Raspberry Imperial Stout. I haven't had it for a while, but it's made with real raspberries, not beaver raspberries, and cocoa. Wait,
but before you answer the next thing, how's Weyerbacher doing these days? They were in some trouble.
Good question. They've come out of bankruptcy. They were supposed to have an investor come in with some money, but that didn't happen. However, they're back up and running. Just before the coronavirus hit, they were talking about some growth opportunities. I don't know where they are right now, and to be frank, I've not seen their beer any new beers from them on the shelves, so I don't know where they stand. I really hope they are. It's one of my favorite breweries out there. So.
I've always admired their stuff. The Merry Monks is good, powerful stuff. By the way, George Cesarini is drinking a Good Vibe Pils from Anchorage Brewing Company. How did he score that one?
We get a little bit of Anchorage, but I've never seen. What is it? Good? Was it a Pils? He said.
Yeah.
I've not had that one.
Okay. Mike Monteleone is having a Marlowe Easy to Share, very light and delicious. I'm not sure of that one. And Hot Rod Matt is enjoying a good Dogfish Head 60-minute IPA. Why not?
Great beer.
So I asked you what kind of beer works best with fruit. Any kind of thing that doesn't, like a stout, just isn't going to work? What's not going to work?
Actually, I think stouts do work because they sort of have, like, if you think about that dark, fruity chocolate flavor, that actually works with fruit often. And this is a bias because I really appreciate the malt flavor of the style, but sort of strong malty beers like a Doppelbock or something like that, I've had fruit added to them, chocolate notably, and I don't like them at all. And that's because I do like the flavor of malt so much. A fruit would take away from that flavor. Gotcha.
All right. By the way, soon we're going to be joined by Mike Sielski, columnist for the Philadelphia Inquirer. Joe Sixpack, your job is to let me know when he's there. So
actually here, Glenn, so we can add him very quickly. Hold on.
All right, let's do that. While you are, I'm just going to throw in one more thing on this, which is you mentioned that early on, some people like to drink fruit beers because they don't particularly like the taste of beer, which Joe Sixpack suggests to me that maybe hard seltzer is going to be entering into this thing as a factor.
Yes. Hold on a second. I had to get Mike on there. Mm-hmm. But I do think that a lot of people who are drinking hard seltzer these days do like that fruit flavor. In fact, there's no real beer flavor, even though it's made of malt. There's no beer flavor in hard seltzer. So you see something like the black cherry. We tasted the black cherry seltzer on the show. It was very fake tasting, very beaver-like, I'd say, and. That's
going to be the thing that sticks with me today. All right, let's bring in our guest. He's a terrific columnist for the Philadelphia Inquirer, the pride of LaSalle University. We know that. Mike Sielski. Mike, thanks so much, man.
Thanks, Happy Glenn. Friday. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it very much. Happy Friday to you guys.
Cheers. What are you drinking there?
I got myself a Free Will Mango Wheat. It is one of my favorite fruit beers.
Terrific. And you actually told us you were drinking that before we even ever told you the theme today. So tell us a little bit about your kind of you as a beer drinker. What do you like? What's your style? How drunk do you get?
Well, I'll tell you this. I've always enjoyed beer, but it wasn't until about almost 3 years ago. Family moved into a new neighborhood, made friends with our neighbors, including a couple of guys who become very close to who are really into beer, and they got me more into it. So, and I like fruit beer. I like wheat beer in particular. So Free Will is about 15, 20 minutes away from where I live. It's in Percy. I live in Doylestown. So I buy from there every chance I get. And their mango wheat is their wheat beer. I think it's the only one that they make. So any chance that I have to drink it, I will drink it. And as I said, I'm a big fan of wheat beer in general. I think I mentioned to you, Glenn, we're getting to the point where, it's appropriate to drink more fruit and wheat beer because the weather's going to warm up. And this is my time of the year in that regard.
You bring up a point, and Joe Sixpack and I talk about this all the time, which is the neighborhood brew pub, the neighborhood tap room, the neighborhood brewery is such a great thing these days. You moved into a neighborhood, there's a good brewery right near you, you get the opportunity. That Joe Sixpack, that's what's changed the world for the better.
I agree. It's, we see all these, mostly very small breweries with tap rooms. They're great meeting places. They actually, what I like about them is that they also promote the towns that they're in. So in the case of, I never heard of Percy before Free Will showed up there. So they've done a great job of promoting their local hometown as well.
All right, let me just, as we do this, Mike, excuse me, because as people interact, I talk about what our viewers are drinking. Mm-hmm. Michael Hole is drinking a Chatty Monk's Altered IPA. Mike Keller is drinking a Type A IPA. That's nice, from Conchi Brewing. Gary Hill had a Sloop Super Soft and Great Lakes Edmonds Fitzgerald. Like that, Edmund Fitzgerald.
Oh, I'm a big fan of Great Lakes stuff. Very much so.
Mike, you travel, not now, but when you get to do your job, do you find yourself when you go to other cities look for good breweries?
I do. I look for good breweries and good beers. Obviously I haven't done it in a while. And I don't have the, the Tapped app. I'm kind of a little more, Untapped. I'm a little more old school. If I find something that I like, I'll actually take out my phone and on the notes function, just type it. And I have a list of about 20 beers that I've had over the course of travels over the last few years that I keep a list of. I had, for instance, the 21st Amendment watermelon wheat for the first time in Canton, Ohio, when Brian Dawkins got inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So I do that as opposed to having another app on my phone.
Nice. Very nice.
Got any particular favorite beer cities that you've been to in your travels?
No, not especially. I was surprised by San Antonio, actually, when I was there for the Final Four a couple of years ago when Villanova was there. I was surprised how many good beers could be found there. And in fact, we were there. It was Easter weekend when Villanova was playing and ended up winning the national championship. So a group of writers went out on Easter Sunday for dinner. And I remember having a local Saison that was just absolutely terrific. I have the name in my phone. I don't have it in front of me right now, but it was really.
Mike Sielski, you are a sports columnist in a world that currently has no sports, which makes it challenging. But all of us, the world, is watching this ESPN documentary about Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls. You wrote a terrific column this past week, really getting to something which is a great criticism of what I think is otherwise a very good series, and that is the treatment of Jerry Krause. Tell us about what bothers you here.
Sure. Well, off the top, the documentary is very entertaining, especially for someone like me who grew up watching Jordan. I was a teenager and a college student, throughout that 6 championship and 8-year run that the Bulls had in the 90s. But what I don't like about the documentary is the fact that Jerry Krause, who was the general manager of the Bulls back then, who, with the exception of Jordan, built the team around him that went on and became this dynasty, is getting kicked by Jordan in every single episode. And he's been dead for 3 years. He's not around to defend himself. And that really bothers me. It shows a real insecurity on Jordan's part and arrogance. It's petty. Like, Michael, we all think you're the best. You don't need to beat up on this guy who you clearly didn't like then and still don't like now to show how great you are. We already think that. And it's totally unbalanced and to me cheap.
Does that surprise you at all coming from Jordan, though?
That's a good question. That's a good question, Joe. It surprised me a tiny bit in that if you remember his Hall of Fame speech back in 2009, he did something very similar. It was all about score settling and calling people out who didn't kiss his feet. And I would have thought in 11 years he would have changed a little bit, or somebody might have gotten into his ear to say, hey, Michael, that wasn't the best way to handle that. But no, he's every bit as angry and bitter now as he was back then. And I guess that bitterness and that competitiveness made him the best basketball player of all time. But, you can be gracious and still be great at the same time.
Yeah, it also takes a lot of shots at Isaiah Thomas, who, again, Isaiah may not be the most sympathetic figure. The difference is at least they go to Isaiah Thomas. He has the opportunity to defend himself. But I think your point of, boy, Michael Jordan can keep a grudge. Mike, maybe that's what makes him so great, things like that.
Yeah, I mean, you see that in the series again and again, Glenn, where he hones in on an opposing player. Like somebody makes an offhand comment about Dan Marley heading into the 1993 NBA Finals, and Jordan takes it as like, well, somebody said Dan Marley was as good as I was, and I'm going to chew him up. And it's like, Michael, nobody in their right mind would ever think that Dan Marley is as good as you are, but you're ginning this up, to turn it on and compete. And you're right, Glenn, that may have made him probably was the reason he was the greatest player of all time, but he's not playing anymore. And Jerry Krause wasn't an opponent. He was a guy working with you to win those 6 championships. And you're still treating him like, you're the bully in the schoolyard and he's the fat kid who can't fight back.
Well, and they showed the videos of he and Pippen, and I understand Pippen's grudge that year. It was legitimate that if people are watching the series, Scottie Pippen is so underpaid and clearly mistreated in that regard. But they run all this video of them mocking Jerry Krause as being short and fat and so on. And yeah, he's not an athlete; he's the GM. But they use that stuff, I think, almost to an excess.
Yeah, I agree. And, the most recent episode dealt with Tony Kukoc and the fact that Kukoc played for Croatia in the 92 Olympics against Jordan, Pippen, and the rest of the Dream Team. And Jordan and Pippen didn't like the fact that Krause was continually going over to Europe to scout Kukoc to try to get him to come play in the NBA. And I understand that Jordan and Pippen wanted to show Kukoc like, hey, this is the NBA. This is what we're all about. We're going to beat you here, and then you come play for us later. But them getting angry at Krause, like going to Europe to scout a player you drafted is what a general manager does. Like that's no reason to get upset at Jerry Krause, and it just seems so excessive to me.
Well, you mentioned Jordan as the greatest of all time. I don't agree, but that's because I'm a Philly guy and will always think that Wilt Chamberlain was the greatest player ever. But let me just ask you, Mike, between Jordan and LeBron James, do you think one's better than the other?
That's a really difficult question to answer because of the nature of the eras. Gun to my head, I guess because of nostalgia, I would take Jordan. But you have to give LeBron so much credit for doing it as long as he's done it. He's taken no breaks. He didn't retire. Right. He has been at this level for so long that it's really amazing. I think probably by the end of his career, we're going to regard him as the greatest player of all time, or at least, to your point about Wilt Chamberlain, above Michael Jordan. I really do think that.
Yeah, I really had wished we could have seen him in the finals this year with the Lakers because that was just an amazing turnaround for that team with LeBron.
Let me just check in with a couple of things that viewers are drinking. Bill Scott says, love your show. My 2 favorites, Tired Hands Double Strawberry Milkshake and Peach Milkshake. Smells great and tastes like beer, not some slush fruit jammed into my beer. That's a good comment. I like that. Scott Murray is drinking Summer Love. And Katie Ann is drinking 8 and Sand Smile Lines. We had some of that 8 and Sand. It was pretty good.
Yeah, and the Victory Summer Love is a fantastic beer as well. Not a fruit beer, but I haven't seen it yet on the shelf, so I'm happy to hear somebody's got a hold of it this year.
So, Mike, I see you have a column. I'm not sure when it's running, but I saw it online today about what the broadcasters are doing with sports shut down, and they miss it as much as we miss it. What else are you doing? I know at one point you were going to be writing for The Upside, but it seems like you found enough good sports columns to write. What are you doing to keep busy?
Well, I'm trying to take what little is happening in the world of sports and trying to kind of tease it out a little bit. Like I'm working on a column, for instance, for next week about, what everybody has been talking about lately, the Eagles' decision to draft Jalen Hurts. And if you look, a really good model for why, and I understand both sides, like why it was good that they took him and why people would be frustrated that they took a quarterback in the second round. But if you want to look for a good model as to why it may have been smart for them to do it, look no further than the team we love to hate, the Dallas Cowboys. Remember, in 2016, Tony Romo was supposed to be the Cowboys starter, and he got hurt in the preseason or whatever was the first game of the regular season, and a rookie quarterback named Dak Prescott came in, and that team went 13-3. And that's why you draft, or, that's the logic behind taking Jalen Hurts. I'm not suggesting that if Carson Wentz were to get hurt, the Eagles would be that good, but that's at least what they're thinking. And here's an example of why it might work. So, it's things like that. I'm looking at stuff, trying to talk to people within organizations about when they think sports will come back. I mean, that's the question in everybody's mind. And so I'm hoping to write a little more about that, about what are these teams doing to make money in the absence of these games? And when do they realistically think the games can begin again?
Well, I've been, and that's great that you can find so many great angles. That's the sign of a true journalist to find those kind of stories, even when there's no sports going on. I do note, though, that there's a number of your colleagues from the sports department who are doing news reporting and so on right now. Are they giving their editors grief over having to have to cover news or what?
Well, first of all, those guys and writers who have done that are doing a terrific job. We have a number of them who have gone over to news and are covering the pandemic. They're writing obituaries, whatever the case may be. I can tell you, after a while, I started to give my editors grief. I wanted to go back to sports. It was what I know. It was what I felt most comfortable doing. And so, just speaking for myself, yeah, I was a pain in the butt.
Okay. Nice to be fair, to be honest. And who likes editors anyways?
That's right. We can go on and on about editors. I don't think we need, that's another whole 3 or 4 beers to get through that.
All 3 of us have been in that same position and battled with editors over the years. And yes, editors suck.
To that. I'll drink to that.
Yeah. So, Mike, you brought up the issue of when sports is coming back. People ask me, when I do the radio show with Ray all the time. By the way, Mike is going to be a guest with Ray and I on Sunday, 12:20, 12:25. My answer to them is I haven't got a blessed idea. Maybe you've got a better sense of it than I do.
I don't think I have a real great sense of it either, Glenn. I don't see how they're going to make something work, whatever league it might be, the NBA, the NHL, Major League Baseball, without some semblance of uniformity throughout the country in terms of when we can all get back to trying to live our lives a little bit. And I don't know how that happens. I mean, the big cities in the Northeast, Boston, Philadelphia, New York, are still dealing with this, with the crisis in such a meaningful way, and that's trickling down a little bit. But you have other areas of the country that seem to be dealing with it a little bit better, or at least more easily. So I don't know. I wish I had an idea. I mean, if they could put them all in a bubble in Phoenix, I'd be all for it. But I don't see that how that happens with the Players Association for whatever league you're dealing with, all that stuff. And now you start to see, counties in, for instance, Pennsylvania are kind of fighting back. Like York County and Lebanon County are coming out saying, you know what, we don't care what the governor says. We're going to open up, our businesses, and we're going to start living our lives. And who knows what that might lead to. It might be good, might be bad.
I'm just trying to see, think of the notion of coming back too early and what, kind of pushback you might even see from sports writers who don't want to be crowded into a press box with a bunch of people. I mean, maybe you'll end up watching some of these games on closed circuit or whatever, but it's a tough spot to put other people in when you go and open up early like that, I think.
Yeah, and my fear, to be honest, guys, and you know this as well as anybody, is if we meaning sports writers and sports media, start covering these games without attending them, then the powers that be are going to think you can cover these events without attending them. And that to me is a bad precedent to set. You don't get the insight, you don't get the accuracy unless you are there to be able to talk to these athletes and coaches and the people who are involved. You wouldn't think to try to cover a fire or a shooting without actually going to the site, and sports coverage is the same way. And I'd hate to see this terrible situation lead to changes in sports coverage that really harmed it.
Yeah, well, amen to that. I mean, travel budgets, as you know, for sports departments are already way down. Hopefully I will see you in the Eagles press box this year. I kind of sit right behind where Mike sits, and
you throw those wadded up balls of paper at me all the time.
I do.
Annoying.
I think we'll have a football season. I don't know what it's going to be like, but I feel pretty good about that. I feel pretty good about baseball. Basketball and hockey, man, I don't know that they're going to be able to finish.
Yeah, I would be surprised, and it's a shame. I was going back and forth with a sports writer today on Twitter. My favorite thing to cover is the NHL playoffs. Being at one of those games is like being inside a pot of boiling water for about 3 hours. It is awesome, and I miss it terribly. And but like you said, Glenn, I'm not sure we're going to see it.
You holding up okay? You have 2 kids, right?
Yeah.
Holding up okay with the kids?
I have 2 boys, 8 and 5, and we're doing the homeschooling thing, and they're handling it pretty well, all things considered. They get at each other's throats every now and again, but pardon me, generally speaking, they get their work finished and are able to get outside. Not today because it's a lousy day, but they're hanging in there. They're hanging in there. It actually sped up my 8-year-old learning how to ride his 2-wheeler. He'd still be struggling, but he had nothing else to do. So we got him on that thing, and he's good to go.
On my block all day, these little kids are riding their bikes up and down the street. I do love that. Mike Sielski, if I'm stuck at home over the next few weeks and I need a good book to read, would you know anything?
Oh, well, I can tell you I wrote one about 10 or 11 years ago called Fading Echoes. True story about 2 guys who grew up in Doylestown, where I live, who were high school football stars and then went on and served in Iraq. One was an Army Ranger and one was a Marine, and the book kind of follows them. And so buy that and read that because I have to feed my kids. And then I'm reading right now Eric Larson, The Splendid and the Vile, all about Churchill and how he handled the Blitz in 1940. It's awesome.
I'm an Eric Larson fan. I've read 3 of his books. The one about the mass murderer at the
Devil in the White City.
Devil in the White City.
It is a desert island book for me, Glenn. One of my favorites.
It's a great book. Hey, thank you so much for joining us. We will see you on the other side, my friend.
Thank you, guys. I enjoyed it very much.
Cheers, Mike.
All right.
Cheers to you both.
All right. Good guy, Joe Sixpack. And as I said, he's going to be joining us on Sunday. He's going to be with Ray and I on the show talking about this. All right. It is time for us to actually, did you have a drink you wanted to make here?
But we'll get to the bottom of that at the end of this here.
All right. Let's get to the news of the week. Not good news at all about Philly Beer Week.
Yeah, I've been waiting for this one. I think the whole city has been, but Philly Loves Beer, which is the nonprofit in town that promotes Philly Beer Week. They announced this week that Philly Beer Week for 2020, or at least the one that was going to start in a couple weeks, has been canceled. Unfortunately, it's not particularly surprising. I'm surprised actually that it took this long to announce it, but they've said that they might bring it back in the fall. That sort of seems like a dicey proposition because I'm not so sure that even by September or October, we're going to see people really wanting to get it together in close proximity at a beer festival. Maybe they'll come up with some other idea. I hope that they do. I hope it survives and hope it continues. But right now, it does not look good for Philly Beer Week in 2020.
Yeah, well, you hope it's just a one-year thing. By the way, let me tell you what people are drinking. Barbara O'Connor Smith. My husband is having a Bell's official Hazy India IPA. Bell's is one of my favorite breweries. I love their stuff.
I didn't know they were making a Hazy IPA. That's we'll have to check that out soon.
Michael Winsky is enjoying a Warwick Farms Brewing Super Citra double IPA.
We've had Warwick Farms beers on the show in the past. They're one of these fledgling breweries. I hope they can make it because they sort of opened up not long before the whole quarantine thing started. So, it's great to see that they're still putting beer out.
The timing was tough. And Jeffrey Schwam says, hey, guys, drinking some Trogs Lollipop. If you haven't tried it yet, this year's batch is a killer.
Looking forward to that. I love that beer, big hoppy beer.
All right, let's do some other news. Bikes and beers, always a good combination, as you can see from my hat.
Exactly. This is one of the several of the kind of virtual events that have cropped up in the age of the pandemic. In this case, you can go to bikesandbeers.com and register, and you would just ride indoors or outdoors. Register that you're a rider, and you get a bunch of beer swag and some beer tokens. Not sure who the money goes to. They say it supports COVID-19 somehow, but I'm not sure. But it sounds like a fun event to do. The other one, which is actually this weekend, which sounds like a lot of fun, is the Cape May County Virtual Beer Fest. There you go and you buy one of the beer, you track down a Cape May beer if you can. There's a bunch of them out there. If you're down the shore, you can probably find them pretty easily just by visiting one of those local breweries. Then you're going to go to Facebook Live tomorrow, and they're going to be running free live music, cooking demonstrations, and beer talk. Check that out. It's at the website. I'm going to tell you is at CMC, as in Cape May County, CMCVBF.com.
All right, hold on. I got a visitor.
All right.
You go over here. You go there. Okay. That's my company during the show. Kevin Inglesby, who I just lost. Sorry about that, Kevin. I would say what you're drinking. There you are, is having a Funk Silent Disco. We've enjoyed that on the show a lot. That's a fine beer. And Katie Ann is having, actually her husband, Justin, is enjoying a Gould's Inlet Sandbar from Coastal Empire Brewing in Savannah, Georgia. Don't know that one.
Nor do I. I've never had it before.
All right. Any new releases you want to talk about?
Yeah, we got a new one from La Cabra, which is out in Chester County, really fine brewery out there. And they put out a SOS Shatter, it's called. It's a 6% New England IPA, and that's available this weekend. They just put it out, and a portion of the proceeds go towards gift cards, which they're giving out to frontline workers.
Nice, very nice, very nice. All right, Mother's Day is on Sunday. It's going to be a different one because there's not going to be any Mother's Day brunches anywhere, and it's going to be a lot quieter than it is usually. But everybody, don't forget to honor your mother or the mother of your children. So, Joe Sixpack, well, I know you were going to work on something here.
I did. So first of all, I think it's totally appropriate. If your mom likes beer, get her a beer for Mother's Day. However, yes, Mother's Day is known for those brunches, and what goes better at a brunch than a mimosa? Usually orange juice and champagne, but I'm here to tell you that you can do this with beer as well. So we're going to make one real quick here. I got myself some Tropicana.
The good stuff.
100% orange juice, no orange flavoring.
No beaver-anus in that one?
No beaver-anus in this thing.
That's going to be the only thing out of this show that I remember.
Exactly. Generally speaking, you do a glass is about a third of the orange juice and a third of your, champagne, or in this case, beer. Now, normally you will talk about using a wheat beer for your beer mosa. I wanted to try something different here, Glenn, because this is one of my favorite beers. Actually, this is a favorite beer of Mrs. Sixpack, I think. And that is Golden Monkey. I want to see how this works out as a mimosa. So I'm going to add this.
By the way, as you're pouring that, Mike Frieswick says Mike Sielski looks drunk. Might have been. Rich Hannon's enjoying a Ring the Bell unfiltered pills. Appreciate that. Mike, I read that one already. Gary Hill, Sloop Super Soft. Good for you. All right. So what do we got?
All right, so we got ourselves a beer mosa made with orange juice and Golden Monkey. I'm going to give this a shot. All right, hold it. I need to send this to the expert over here to see how
good.
Sixpack thinks of this one. She's going to, hopefully we can hear her on here.
You're going to get her on camera?
No. Solid no.
Let me guess. Like my wife, you haven't gotten your hair cut in 8 9 weeks.
And what do you think of this?
No.
She doesn't like it. No. I do like it. So
okay. Well, there you go.
I will be serving this on Sunday, I guess.
All right. Anything else you wanted to cover? I know we got a great sign-off tonight. Anything else I forgot to put in here?
I wanted to go to this wonderful sign-off, and we're going to see it right now. This is from a brewery up in New York that's doing the whole expand the screen.
They got a great home delivery system there, don't they?
There we go.
That's beautiful. All right. Hey, by the way, you can reach him at @beer_radar on Twitter. You can reach me at Real Glen Macnow. The show is at What's Brewing. We thank everybody for joining us today, and we leave you with this. What is better than two dogs delivering beer to your house? Joe Sixpack, until we meet again.
Thanks, Glenn. Enjoyed it, and hopefully we can drink together in person sometime soon.
Amen. Our best to everybody. Take care.